Hey guys, welcome back to more AFK Arena. In today's video, we've got a really nice video. I jumped on with Artie at the end of last week and we did a whole deep discussion on Treasure Scramble. Now, because I'm only getting this uploaded now, it's going to be past the round that we had. There's 3 rounds of Treasure Scramble. There's the burst round where when you kill an enemy, you basically go crazy. There's the energy reduction round, which is going to be the one that's upcoming on Global. And then there is also the one where it's like the consistent damage round. Now, I'm going to get Artie back on for all of these rounds. This video is going to be more focused on the burst round, so you can come back to this one next time the burst phase is on. But what we essentially do in here is we go through all the teams that Kiasma has, talk about them, talk about some substitutes in them, and then we go into some theory crafting on some just more free-to-play teams if you're only building like 3 teams and stuff like that. So I'll leave some timestamps in the description so you can bounce around. But yeah, I've just been seeing in the comments people asking for more Treasure Scramble stuff and also Cursed Realm. So we're going to try and get a bunch more of that sort of stuff, at least just the general, the basics and some like nice deep videos on those topics for you guys over the next few weeks. So let me know if there's anything in this video that you'd like to see different when we go over the next round of Treasure Scramble, which is starting in 22 hours at the time of recording this, and we can try and make it a bit clearer or improve these videos. But yeah, like I said, Treasure Scramble, this is looking at the burst round. Use the timestamps. Artie's a wealth of knowledge, so hope you guys enjoy. Artie, welcome back, dude. Good to have you.
I'm glad to be on.
Where should we start? I think a good format for this is if we go through the teams over here on Kiasma and we talk about the maybe we kick it off talking about the debuffs, because it does change depending on debuffs. So do you want to kick us off with that?
I think first and foremost, we should probably mention the relevance of Scramble, why people should pay attention to it, why it's in the game. Scramble, ever since the release of Cores, when it got added, it's slowly gotten a lot of reward buffs. This is probably the best alternative mode to focus in the entire game. It's better than Cursed Realm for rewards. It's better than most of your side modes. Being competitive in this means a lot. And keeping a relatively high score will keep you getting a hell of a lot more free-to-play rewards than the next person in. As for debuffs, buffs or debuffs, people call them whatever. They change between rounds. Each round is about 2 weeks. The one we have right now, I call it the burst round. It's basically when one ally hero kills an enemy, their damage is increased out the wazoo. They do 80% more damage, get 60% attack rating, 20 haste, Madge and Fizz Pierce. It is absolutely ridiculous, which is why any teams that have very high initial damage or heavily rely on one character doing everything will excel in this round. There's also another round, I call it the damage over time round, where basically your first set of damage, it's probably not going to show up here.
Yeah, we can't
your
find
first
that one.
instance of damage does like 25%, but for every single tick of damage, it scales up in quick succession and also gives them energy. So that's where characters such as like Awakened Talene with their ultimate, which does very slow damage over time ticks, becomes a lot better. And then the other round, the one that we're going to have next season here, is the energy debuff round. So basically, I think it also messes with shields, if I remember correctly. It makes shields not relevant or have a very, very low buff amount, as well as reduces the energy generation over the battle. So paying attention to these buffs and changing teams based on the buffs is going to reward you heavily compared to your competition. A couple ways to keep yourself informed. First of all, if you want to see some of the better teams that people are succeeding with, look at your top 100 in your region. Don't look at like your number 1, your 2, your top 10. Those are going to be your super whales. Go down to your 50, your 75. Go to the lower slots. You're going to see people with a lot lower investments doing pretty well. Also, a couple Discords have stuff for this. The official AFK Arena Discord has an entire channel dedicated to this mode. People are there helping people. People are there giving advice. Try to focus this mode where you can. Again, you're not going to have the most success in the absolute world. Don't expect to have 100% win rates all the time. But at least try and log in, change up your teams once, twice a week.
If it's not working, fix it up. Yeah.
Yeah, if it's not working, change it. If you've got literally 0% on a team, don't stick to that team. And you can see people here, some people have really high investments on some weird heroes. Some are doing well with some very bad investments.
Yep. Yeah,
Again,
definitely,
checking.
and definitely, if you're on a newer server, you're a newer account. You definitely this one of checking other teams because you might see like if you're on a fresh. Because is this server specific or is this battle group specific?
It's region based. It's not so how we have like region 1 through like 35 will be like it'll be under region 1 or treasure scramble 1. So
Yep.
it's relatively close to when your server started. There are some variances, but not a ton.
Yeah, perfect. So yeah, if you're on a newer server and you're a new player, you'll probably see some different formations in here that are working that you can sort of lean into to copy. Shall we look at the teams here on Chiasma and just go through the basics, keeping in mind that at the moment we are in that one that's got basically the berserk mode for a single character after they kill someone.
Yeah.
So and obviously you can max out to 7 teams. And obviously a lot of people aren't going to be at this stage. We know that, but we just want to look at key principles and operations, and then we can scale that back. And maybe at the end, we'll look at some, more budget early game type teams that you can go ahead and use. And obviously this one, the one thing that we were talking before this, like that I love about Treasure Scramble is the level 360 cap. It's much better than Marshall ratings, in my opinion. I like it when they put an actual cap on the levels. Then you've still got your whale features. You've got obviously having the heroes. You've got, your signature items, your furniture, your engravings, all that sort of stuff. But at least it's just capped at the level. It makes it feel like there is like an end point to it. So that's the first thing. But let's jump into this first team and have a look then.
Yeah, first team here is Burst. It's very simple, been around in the meta forever. You like Zolrath, you like Leica, you like having haste and a lot of early damage. The version we have pulled up here is the very expensive version. It uses Anasta as another damage option. Typically, if you don't have Anasta fully built, Mishka is a very, very easy substitution. The team does very well in basically all debuffs, even the rounds where it's supposed to be damage over time. All the heroes do a very good amount of damage through there. And even 25% damage on an Audrey shot is probably going to 1 to 2 shot people. As you scale down a little bit, you start putting in Mishka. Obviously, a lot of people don't have a full Zolrath built or they don't have Zaf built. There's a lot of budget options that use heroes like Scarlet as the main form of damage, or they'll use like Rain and Estrilda to funnel energy into a main DPS.
Yeah.
But in general,
and I was just going to say, with a team like this, with the Zafrael, you're looking at Audrey to land the kill and get the buffs. Is that the intention out of this one?
The intention is Audrey to kill and get buffs, but basically anyone aside from Leica getting the kill will still result in very good ending points.
Yeah, and in this type of format, even a Zafrael without like max investment, would you still find him good, especially in this one with the debuff for the CC, or would he be a bad? Would basically, and what I'm trying to say is, in this format with low ascension, low investment characters, just be in general bad because they can get knocked off quicker, or would something like Zafrael be beneficial? Because he lunges and maybe it's a character that they don't want to land the kill that will land the kill on him. Is there any sort of evidence like that you've seen?
There is some of it. It heavily depends team on team and especially some of the matchups. Like, for example, some enemy characters, let's say Yennefer, for example, because she is really good, like right away. She has that initial blast.
Yep.
If it's big AoE, it's going to kill Zaf anyways, and they're going to get the buff even faster. But if you're diving into like an enemy Scarlet Rain team and somehow the Rain kills her, well, then all of a sudden your buff is on just this useless character.
Yeah.
But it's heavily matchup dependent, and you can't really decide what fights what. Your team order means nothing for Treasure Scramble.
Yeah.
Like whatever you have first versus seventh, they're all gonna fight the same teams randomly.
Yeah. No, that's fair. Yeah, it's just one of those ones, like, especially with this debuff, you want to be careful of not giving too much advantage early and trying to cheese it if you can. But obviously this one is more of a high spended team based on the amount of Celestials Hypergenes that we have. But that same principle of the Anasta, if you have a built and Leica, can be taken over into other characters that you have for the benefits that they bring to the early stages of a fight.
Yes.
Yep. Sick. All right, let's jump into team number 2 and have a look at the principles of this one.
Yeah, team 2 is pretty simple. If you have an Awakened Thane, he does a hell of a lot of damage. This entire team, the job is to protect him, give him as much attack, and just let him do his thing. Without Awakened Thane, there really isn't a substitute for this team. You really just end up like moving Estrilda into some form of burst. You kind of just have a... Ooh, speaking is difficult. a different mishmash of characters. There really isn't much to say. There aren't really budget substitutions for the team. If you have an Awakened Thane, you can kind of throw this stuff together. You can use other tanks like Orthros or Brutus as fine frontline options.
Yeah,
But
the Hendrick's quite clutch in this. Like, you've obviously got the 5 faction bonus as well, plus the Hendrick to defend Thane in case any shit happens.
yeah, Hendrick is to protect Thane. Sonya just has really good defensive capabilities. Estrilda, energy and damage amp. Halus just to buff Thane.
Yeah.
It's not super crazy. It puts up good results every single round.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm tipping if you've got a decent Awakened Thane, you know, and you're still progressing through the game, you if you've had good rates, I know my rates on Awakened Heroes were absolute dog shit, but if you've had good rates, Awakened Thane's just GG's in general. I feel like if you're in the early stages when you're not facing people that have fully built teams, it's just a good win, basically, is where I'd see it for those early game players, or mid, probably early late. Hey, this is a different thing I got to get onto. What do you consider early, mid, and late game now?
That is a messed up question to ask me off the top of my head.
Okay, we'll leave that one out. But you guys get it. If you've got a built Awakened Thane, go nuts. solid main DPS, especially for this format. Let's jump into the third team and take a look at these principles. And this one, once again, a little bit luxury, but a bit more on level.
One is a luxury version of a team most people can build. So This is basically the very luxury version of Burst for the dimensional round. Or, oh my goodness, luxury version of Dims for the Burst round. Obviously, a lot of people have noticed it. Ainz is falling out of meta, even in PvP. He's okay. And Yennefer is basically Ainz Deluxe. She does the damage you need. She does it faster. She doesn't sit at the start of battle chanting for 10 seconds doing nothing. In this specific version, we have Albedo and Merlin, which are just staple supports to go with. And then Baba Yaga is just really good additional damage right at the start of a fight. Her house can do a lot of damage early on. And she won't die right away, just in case she gets dove because of her death immunity.
Just on a side topic, Baba Yaga, I feel like she's very underrated. Do you think, like, maybe that's just in where I see people talk about it? I just think she's got a fantastic kit.
A lot of her kit is pretty good, but a lot of it's replaceable, and people don't really need to put the investment into her compared to other options.
Yeah, too high on the signature item and furniture to get her to that point with the second life and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
It makes me sad. I really like her.
Yeah. Yeah, the only reason Aioli is in this team is mostly just because it's additional healing and support. You can replace her with any relevant dimensional. You could throw a Leonardo da Vinci in here. You can throw a whole lot of just good bursty heroes.
Yeah. And this one's obviously around getting Yennefer to get the first kill, ideally, and then just snowball from there.
Yeah, and this team will work probably on most debuffs. There are some going to be like slightly better alterations depending on the exact buff, but in general, any form of basic dimensional synergy will do fine. Again, if you don't have Yen, you can use Ainz. You can sometimes use them both. It's all team dependent.
Yep, 100%. All right, on to the next one. Let's take a look. And hopefully people have Yennefer because the exchange is, like, at the time of recording this, ongoing right now. So hopefully everyone can pick that up anyway. So this one is a very interesting team to me. Explain the logic on this one.
This team is very not free-to-play friendly. I don't expect most of you to be able to build this. In general, most of you are probably going to be able to do something. Maybe you have an Aioli, maybe not. She was kind of priority for a little bit, but fell off pretty hard. But mostly Aster and Navanthi are the main characters you want to focus on here because they provide a ridiculous level of support. These two characters can basically keep a team alive on their own. The exact synergy with this team, the biggest of them is Astar and Navanthi keeping alive Tarnos, as well as Tarnos. His little pillars count as summons for Navanthi buffs, so he ends up going absolutely crazy. As well as Rook is just another very good tanky damage option. And Aetoline's just kind of there to round it all out. That's what her job is mostly.
Yeah.
For people who have lower accounts, you'll probably pair Navanthi and Astar with another tanky set of options who are probably just a bit more budget.
So what's your ideal in this one? Like, who lands the kill in this formation?
In this formation, it's almost always going to be Rook or Tarnos. Eventually, Aethelene may get time for an ult, but she might end up kind of having her fake death, and Tarnos ends up getting a kill first.
And
Either one of those two is very good.
yeah, and with that, so if you don't have these 3 units, what would something like what would it look like? So obviously you want some tanky units because you don't want them to die, but who would be your more budget substitute to land the first kill in a team like this?
The first thing that comes to mind is Mishka. If she's not in burst, or if you have like a burst alternative, Mishka's really good here. She plays with the Navanthi summon buff. Uh, Other wilder tanks, maybe Oku is fine. Oku's also pretty good in the damage over time round, so this team kind of gets carryover there. Beyond that, you'll mostly throw these two supports with some kind of Gradeborn focus. Maybe you throw it with Grazul.
Yep.
It's kind of hard. Again, it kind of depends based on each round for this specific team. This one's not very budget and kind of hard for people to build around.
Yep. 100%. All right, that's sweet. Let's jump into the next one, Team 5. So away you go. Obviously, using Screg for the invade side of things, and Brutus and Frampton are going to put in a bulk of the work. And I mean, I've just always loved Brutus and Frampton together to get the group up to get the spiral happening.
Yeah, this team's pretty simple. It's group enemies together and let a Brutus be a broken PvP monster. The rest of the team is just there for buffs and survivability. Inoki shields, Inoki melee buff helps out both of them. Screg invade. Joan, just general kit is really good.
Yep.
This team is a bit of an alternate version. A lot of people will end up putting Talene or the basic Talene, or they'll put Anasta in position of Inoki.
Yep.
I personally just kind of liked Inoki. She was just performing better on this round, but any of them are pretty good. I know. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say now with the Brutus, because he's the main focus in this one, and like a lot of these end game teams do focus on like the Awakened heroes. If you're someone that's like newer to the game, maybe you're at like 3 teams in your rounds. At lower ascension, have you seen anything good happen out of a low ascension Awakened Brutus, or does he need those upgrades to make him function in this purpose?
I would say he needs Mythic. He really doesn't perform super well below, but once you get him kind of towards the Mythic range, he starts to perform in Scramble. I'm sure if you're really low, Legendary will probably do fine.
Yep.
But otherwise, you can substitute him with other just fine melee DPS. You can put Anasta there instead of him. You could probably substitute in a Lucretia, although not to the greatest results. There's probably miscellaneous heroes you can spot in and have decent times with.
Yep. Perfect. All right, let's jump into the 6th team. All right, so here we go. This one's this one's a bit interesting to me because I feel like this could also be a very budget-esque team. But give us your spin on this one.
This is the 17 Hodgepodge. This is throwing together a bunch of heroes who are relatively good for the debuff and praying they work. I haven't even tested this team. I'm hoping it works. 7th round, it always kind of changes. We have new heroes. We have a lot of stuff that gets slotted in. This is your miscellaneous, Leonardo da Vinci's good because he has the damage right away, or Athalia is good because she'll dive one person and then get the buff. It's hoping and praying that a mix of good heroes will do well. Every single round has something like this. There is never a perfect full 7 teams.
Yeah, so for me, when I look at this one, this is like, this feels like the case of good characters are good characters. Throw them in if you have them, and hope that they do the job. Is that essentially what we're looking at?
That is exactly what we're looking at.
So my thoughts with this one is, even for the standard person, if you've got a Da Vinci and a Mishka built, and you've got like a low ascension Awaken Aziz and Athalia, I feel like you can still throw this team in and possibly still get the same effect. And you just rely on Mishka or Da Vinci getting that kill. And then, you can sub out the Mezoth for like a Brutus or something like that. So you're just going full CC, hope everything is CC, hope you can lock them out until one of those two get a kill, even with those other things at low ascension, and then just snowball and win. Is that the essential idea that you could run with?
Yeah, there's a lot of different things you can do too, because Mishka you can split into other rounds. Same with LDV. Sometimes it's a really good option to split up some of your carries between rounds, like quite a bit. The Awakened are usually their own level of carries, which is why for more whales you'll see like one awaken, and then there's this mismatch of good carries. Whereas for weaker players, you usually are kind of struggling for carry options. So when you
Yep.
see something like this, it might be best to split up your carries and maybe don't put Mishka and LDV. Maybe swap Mishka for another tank and put Mishka in a round that needs her more.
Yep.
Because keep in mind, it's not about each individual team doing the absolute best it can. It's about your overall percentage being as high as possible.
100%, yes. And obviously, like, the thing is, we're at 7 teams here, but often for people, if you're at 2 or 3 teams, like, you will have more room to put more good units into a team together because you have less teams to build. So that's also, so it's a bit of a balancing act as well. But honestly, I like that team. It brings me a little bit of joy looking at that. And then finally, we have this one. I feel like this one's fairly self-explanatory, but jump into it.
Yeah, it's on the Graveborns. It's been around for the last year and a half. You can do it with Ana Lucretia. You can do it with Grez. On this round specifically, Awaken Baden just came out. He's a really good option for it. For lower spending people, you obviously don't need a big ass Tresnor. Put in like Farah, have Lucretia there. It'll do fine team. Most people are going to be using something similar to it, so it may not have the craziest win rates, but it'll usually do pretty well.
Yep. And I feel like when we're looking at this stuff, by the time you get to the serious end of Treasure Scramble, you're probably like building your Ulna and your Lucretia and, you know, like that's the kind of unit I feel like a lot of people would have by now is going to be the Ulna. So I feel like that's just a fair play for a lot of people to look towards. If you didn't have the Ulna, would you make this work?
You'd probably still force it with just a general Graveborn core. Maybe you put in like Hodgkin or another like fine Graveborn tank. It just definitely wouldn't do as well.
Yeah.
It'd have a significant drop off.
Yeah, and obviously, like you said, we can replace that Baden with the Grizzle, the Lucretia, anything like that. Honestly, it's just the solid. It's just a solid core for a team, and like it feels like it works in just about any sort of format that you go to. Just the Ulna Graveborns. But what I'm thinking with this one, do you want to jump over and we'll have a look at some like potential like more budget teams, because a lot of those teams did have Awakens or Celestial Hypergenes and stuff like that. We'll go through some theory crafting on some basic teams, and then I'm thinking maybe we do come back in the next round of this and we do another video based on that debuff, because we did end up focusing heavily on that debuff. You cool to do that?
Yeah.
That's sick.
I'm absolutely fine with that.
Let's just jump over. We'll just jump over to campaign or something so that we can put some teams in. Let's do the tower. And then we'll have a look. All right, let's jump into it. So, free to play options for this round. We'll go specifically on this round where we want to get the early kills.
For this round specifically, knowing that most budget players are going to have some round of that Scarlet Burst I mentioned earlier, which by the way looks something kind of like maybe Estrilda, Mishka. Yeah, Scarlet, and then it's usually like Rain and I think it's 1 sec. I'm going to check.
Yeah, easy.
Usually some form of Leica as well. It's usually some relatively cheap budget burst.
Yeah.
Usually the goal is to just get your Scarlet early ult, hopefully get early kills, kind of steamroll it. Usually people do some kind of form of this. So then when you get to a cycle team, again, cycle is going to be with your Twins and Aziz, and Rowan.
Yeah.
Usually people will put Lucretia into this team. They'll do Lucretia and Halus, and then they'll do Grizzul or another option with their Graveborns.
Now the Twins is because I don't think that's something many people build these days anymore.
There's a lot of people still getting them up from Challenger Store, and it's also pretty relevant for a lot of older players.
Yes.
But
what I was getting at, if these guys are low Ascension, still viability?
Yes.
Yeah.
Even with low Ascension, these guys are still relatively viable. Again, won't be excellent. You'll usually want them backlined. But I've seen a legendary Aziz do absolute wonders, especially in the damage over time round. That character is ridiculous. Because it's damage over time, what happens specifically with Aziz is that his fire on the ground will proc on every enemy near him and keep giving him energy. And he basically just starts scaling to ult infinitely.
And then the enemies can't do anything. That's wicked.
Yeah.
And so in this current round of the burst, what would your final unit in this type of team be?
Usually Halus is what people put in. You can also throw in Desira. You can throw in basically any level of viable support.
Yeah, that sort of thing just ends up being your formation kind of depends on what your investment in characters are. Like a lot of people are going to have a fully built Rowan, so maybe putting him in the front row can be a better option than anything else that we have here if they're low ascensions and stuff like that. And then you just rely on that Lucretia getting that first kill and basically snowballing.
Yeah, it always just depends on your exact investments, what ends up going on.
Yep, perfect.
And yeah.
What was that? You want to add to that?
No, I didn't have anything else to toss in.
That's sick. All right. And then, so for a third team, because we'll look at people with like 3 teams for this example, what else can we look at for another sort of reasonably budget type team?
1 sec here.
There's one character I want to ask you about. Have you found it?
Ask away.
Have you found it? I felt like Spearboy, I hate saying his name because it's too close to Euron. Have you found any use for him?
Yeah. Kind of. He's relatively good on this burst round, but the problem is that he needs a lot of support because he is very good at walking into a high damage enemy and just dying. He is a relatively decent option if you want to not use Grizul in your Graveborn round. You can put Euron in there.
Yep.
That's definitely not how you pronounce it.
I reckon it's Orin. I reckon it's meant to be Orin.
It probably is.
Silent
I am certified for butchering every single character's name.
Yeah.
But yeah, because Grizul doesn't do super good in any of the 3 rounds, so you can put him in as a relatively nice substitution.
Yeah.
He does need a bit of investment. I think most people I've seen have med engraving 30, but you can probably get away with less.
Yeah. No, I was just curious. Like, obviously, a lot of people aren't going to have him because he's not a meta unit. He's just one of those units that ever since he came out, I love lunges. I think he's got a sick design, and I was just like, it just kind of made me sad when I was just like, PvP's got to be his one viable area, but you know, he's still maybe someone finds something in the future. But without my getting sidetracked, what's the final kind of more budget team that we want to look at? Now, we already mentioned that sort of a Star and Navanthi comp idea. Do we want to just sort of expand on that in the free-to-play side of it, or do you want to look at something different?
We can expand on that a little bit. Usually for those in specific, what you'll probably pair them with is Raku and just like some more CC front lines. Because as you go down, your options for like damagey frontline really starts to diminish when you're not looking at your silly hypos.
If you hadn't invested, because obviously we're talking about early game, if you had a well-invested Star, would you just put her in the front row?
You definitely can.
She's a viable damage mitigation, shielding.
Yeah.
And then when she ults, she runs away anyway.
Option.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then like even something like a Gorvo and something like this. Now, this is something else I was going to ask you. I keep getting sidetracked. Is there any, in this, especially this round, does Chicken ever find a place?
People can use them in 5-pull. If you're going really budget, you can do like 5-pull Lucretia, but it's very, very sketchy. Yeah. I've seen sometimes it'll do like 60%, 50-60%, and for some people it'll do 10%.
Yep.
And there's really no rhyme or reason.
Yep. No, that makes sense. Yeah, I was just curious because like obviously that we went through such a large phase where it was always about Chicken and then it sort of phased out. And but like, I mean, in this burst round, it's tough because you're dragging all your enemies on top of one character, being the Euron, and it's like easy clap for him.
Yeah, it's either Euron kills all of them, does absolutely wonderful, they get CC'd, or the enemies just one-shot him and then he cries.
Yep, pretty much. So what would we go for a filler in this team just to round out this type of team? You could just use any sort of support in this, isn't it?
Yeah,
ideally we'd want some more CC in this sort of team if we had the Gorvo. Tassie
any CC that can do like a little bit of damage ideally.
Something like a Pipper even for CC?
It definitely could work. I wouldn't guarantee it. Usually I'd look towards some kind of summoning support if possible, just because we have Navanthi in there. But your options are relatively limited.
Obviously Mishka's one, but I think we used her back here. Yeah.
Yeah.
But definitely, yeah, those sorts of options. I'm curious. I'm trying to think. The other thing is, now that I've got you here, when's Tree getting a buff?
As in, when are we buffing him up, or when is he actually going to be used?
When's he going to get a buff and be usable? I want to see the
when
Tree
Lilith
get some love.
decides so, man. Dude, I'm still waiting for the day I can whip out Cirrus and some kind of tournament and be the happiest man in the world. That guy pushing enemies into the wall permanently will make me so happy.
Can I just say, And if you guys hadn't realized, we're pretty much at the end of the video now. We're just talking shit. But Cirrus, okay, hot take. He was way better at the launch of the game, like the original launch of the game, when his waves were water sharks. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
Why did they change that? That was the greatest thing ever.
Because Lilith hates fun. And I bet at least 5 people here didn't realize they ever changed it because they haven't used this character since the game's global launch.
It's so true. I remember I re-rolled for him because I just liked the sharks. Oh, dude, that's insane. But anyway, I think we got through a fair few teams, a few ideas. That basically covers this round. I know we weren't going to originally just do this round, but I feel like we'll come back and we'll do the next round once it's here, and we can talk more specifically about those sorts of teams in that one. But is there anything else you want to cap off with?
A couple ways to keep yourself informed. First of all, if you want to see some of the better teams that people are succeeding with, look at your top 100 in your region. Don't look at like your number 1, your 2, your top 10. Those are going to be your super whales. Go down to your 50, your 75. Go to the lower slots. You're going to see people with a lot lower investments doing pretty well. Also, a couple Discords have stuff for this. The official AFK Arena Discord has an entire channel dedicated to this mode. People are there helping people. People are there giving advice. Try to focus this mode where you can. Again, you're not going to have the most success in the absolute world. Don't expect to have 100% win rates all the time. But at least try and log in. Change up your teams once, twice a week.
If it's not working, fix it up. Yeah?
Yeah, if it's not working, change it. If you've got literally 0% on a team, don't stick to that team. And you can see people here. Some people have really high investments on some weird heroes. Some are doing well with some very bad investments.
Yep. Yeah,
again,
definitely. And definitely, if you're on a newer server, you're a newer account, you definitely this one of checking other teams, because you might see, like, if you're on a fresh... Because is this server specific or is this battle group specific?
It's region based. It's not so how we have like region 1 through like 35 will be like, it'll be under region 1 or treasure scramble 1. Yep. So it's relatively close to when your server started. There are some variances, but not a ton.
Yeah, perfect. So yeah, if you're on a newer server and you're a new player, you'll probably see some different formations in here that are working that you can sort of lean into to copy. But is that about it?
That's all I got.
Awesome, mate. As always, appreciate you bringing the knowledge. You're a much smarter man than I am, so we need to get that out here. And once again, if you guys have anything else that you guys would like to know, like I said, Curse Realm's been a big one, so we'll work on some Curse Realm stuff, get some more info for that. But as always, thanks for watching. Hope you have an awesome day, and we'll look forward to seeing the next one. Cheers.